What if one of the biggest threats to government benefits in America is not something happening years from now, but something quietly moving through government offices right now while millions of people have absolutely no idea it exists? Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that rules affecting disability benefits, retirement payments, or financial assistance programs changed while most people were busy living their normal lives. Sounds impossible, but major changes rarely arrive with giant warning signs. Most of the time, they appear quietly. A proposal gets introduced, a rule gets rewritten, a document gets reviewed, a policy moves from one office to another, and before many people fully understand what happened, the system they depend on may already look different. For millions of Americans relying on government benefits, this creates an uncomfortable reality. The programs people depend on are incredibly important, but understanding how those programs change is often much harder than understanding the programs themselves. Today, we need to talk about something many people are paying attention to because questions continue appearing everywhere. Are certain benefit programs facing new pressure? Could future rule changes affect people receiving assistance? And why are so many people worried about possible changes involving financial eligibility rules? Before going further, understand something important. Programs involving retirement benefits, disability benefits, supplemental assistance programs, and income-based support systems are extremely complicated. Policies change, proposals appear, rules evolve, and not every discussion automatically becomes reality. But understanding how these systems work matters, because preparation always works better than surprise. One area receiving significant attention involves income-based assistance programs. These programs exist for people with limited income and limited resources. Many recipients depend on these programs not for luxury, not for convenience, but for survival. That distinction matters, because when people discuss benefit programs, conversations often become political. But for millions of households, these programs are practical realities. Rent, food, utilities, medical costs, basic necessities. Now imagine depending on a system where financial eligibility depends not only on income but also on resources. Resources create challenges many people never expect, because sometimes having slightly too much saved can create problems. Sometimes receiving money unexpectedly creates complications. Sometimes financial decisions that seem harmless create consequences. Many people discover this only after making mistakes. Consider a simple example. Someone receives assistance because their income remains low. They carefully manage expenses. They survive month to month. Then something changes. A family member helps financially. They receive back payments. They sell something valuable. They inherit money. Suddenly, resource calculations change. This is where many people become confused, because government benefit systems often involve thresholds. Thresholds sound simple. Stay below them. Remain eligible. Cross them. Things change. But real life rarely behaves perfectly. Unexpected events happen constantly, and this creates enormous anxiety for people depending on these programs. Another reason concern continues growing is because many Americans already feel financial pressure. Housing costs increased. Healthcare costs increased. Food costs increased. Insurance costs increased. Daily expenses increased. Meanwhile, many benefit recipients feel like their payments never seem to stretch as far as they once did. This creates an environment where even rumors about future changes create fear. And fear spreads quickly, especially online. The problem is that fear without information creates confusion. Confusion creates poor decisions. Poor decisions create unnecessary problems. So instead of focusing only on rumors, it helps to understand how these systems actually function. Many assistance programs use eligibility formulas. These formulas consider factors like income, assets, living arrangements, marital status, household structure, work activity, and sometimes additional variables. This means changes affecting one part of life can sometimes affect other parts too. A person may think they changed one thing. The system may see multiple changes. This is why people frequently discover that government benefits are less like isolated programs and more like connected systems. Everything interacts. Income interacts with eligibility. Eligibility interacts with payments. Payments interact with healthcare. Healthcare interacts with financial planning. Nothing exists completely alone. Another important issue involves administrative processes. Many people assume benefits work automatically forever once approved. Unfortunately, that assumption sometimes creates problems. Programs often require updates, reviews, documentation, reporting changes, responding to notices, providing records. Missing important communication can sometimes create complications. Not because someone intentionally did something wrong, but because systems require ongoing interaction. Think about how many important letters people receive every year: insurance notices, bank statements, tax forms, medical documents, government correspondence. Now imagine accidentally ignoring something important. This happens more often than many people realize. And because many people depend heavily on benefit income, even small administrative problems can feel enormous. Another reason people remain concerned about possible policy changes is because government budgets constantly create debate. Every major program eventually becomes part of larger conversations about spending priorities. This does not automatically mean cuts happen, but it does mean discussions happen repeatedly, and repeated discussions create uncertainty. For benefit recipients, uncertainty itself becomes stressful, because planning becomes difficult when future rules feel unclear. This is especially true for people receiving disability-related assistance. Many individuals receiving support already face challenges most people never see: medical limitations, employment difficulties, healthcare expenses, transportation problems, housing concerns. Navigating complicated systems while dealing with those realities creates enormous pressure. That is why conversations about rule changes generate strong reactions. Because for many households, these programs are not secondary income. They are primary income. Another major source of confusion involves the difference between various programs. People frequently combine programs together, even when rules differ dramatically. Retirement benefits operate differently. Disability programs operate differently. Income-based programs operate differently. Survivor benefits operate differently. Spousal programs operate differently. Understanding which program applies matters because rules affecting one program may not affect another. This creates another challenge: complexity. Modern benefit systems contain enormous complexity, and complexity creates opportunities for misunderstanding. Now ask yourself something. If rules affecting your income change tomorrow, would you know where to verify the information? Many people immediately turn toward social media, videos, comments, posts, friends, family. Unfortunately, information quality varies dramatically. Some information is accurate, some information is outdated, some information is incomplete, some information is simply wrong. This creates another reason preparation matters, because understanding where reliable information exists becomes valuable long before emergencies happen. Another factor people often ignore involves timing. Policy discussions do not automatically create immediate changes. Administrative procedures exist. Review processes exist. Implementation timelines exist. Many things happen slowly, but slow movement creates another problem. People stop paying attention, then suddenly discover changes much later. This is why awareness matters, not panic. Awareness. There is a major difference. Panic creates rushed decisions. Awareness creates better decisions, and better decisions become increasingly important when financial stability depends heavily on benefit systems. Many people ask the same question repeatedly. Should they be worried? The better question may be different. Should they be informed? Because information creates options, and options create flexibility. People with information usually respond better than people caught completely off guard. One important thing to remember is that systems change constantly, not always dramatically. Sometimes small adjustments create large consequences. Sometimes large announcements create minimal practical changes. This is exactly why understanding systems matters more than reacting emotionally to headlines. Because headlines disappear quickly, rules remain much longer. The reality is simple. Millions of Americans depend on benefit systems. Millions worry about future changes. Millions want certainty. But certainty rarely exists. Preparation does. And preparation begins with understanding how the systems affecting your financial future actually work. Another reality many people do not think about involves how financial decisions interact with benefit eligibility. People often assume income is the only thing that matters. But depending on the program, resources, savings, assets, and financial activity may matter too. This creates situations where decisions that appear harmless may require additional attention. Receiving money, moving money, selling property, changing living arrangements, starting work, stopping work. Every change creates potential consequences. That does not automatically mean problems happen. It simply means awareness becomes important. Consider how complicated daily life already is. People manage bills, medical appointments, family responsibilities, work obligations, transportation, unexpected expenses. Now add complicated benefit rules on top of that. It becomes easier to understand why confusion happens. This is also why many people delay asking questions. Sometimes systems feel overwhelming. Sometimes paperwork feels overwhelming. Sometimes people worry they might discover bad news. But delaying important questions rarely makes systems simpler. In many cases, earlier action creates more flexibility. Another major issue involves documentation. Many benefit programs rely heavily on records, income records, bank records, medical records, employment records, housing information, identity documents, correspondence. Keeping records organized may sound simple, but when documentation becomes necessary unexpectedly, organization suddenly becomes extremely valuable. Think about how stressful it feels searching for missing paperwork during important deadlines. Now imagine doing that while worried about income or healthcare. Preparation reduces stress, not because preparation guarantees perfect outcomes, but because preparation increases options. Another reason benefit discussions continue attracting attention involves demographics. Large portions of the population depend on retirement programs. Large portions depend on disability support. Large portions depend on healthcare assistance. As populations age, conversations naturally become larger. More participants create more debate. More debate creates more headlines. More headlines create more confusion. This cycle repeats constantly. That is why separating discussion from reality becomes important. Not every proposal becomes policy. Not every rumor becomes fact. Not every announcement creates immediate change. This distinction matters because emotional reactions sometimes create unnecessary financial decisions. Some people react too quickly. Others ignore everything completely. Neither extreme works well. Balanced awareness usually works better. Another challenge many recipients experience involves communication barriers. Government language can sometimes feel complicated. Letters contain technical wording. Rules contain exceptions. Forms contain unfamiliar terminology. This complexity creates opportunities for misunderstanding. Many people read important notices multiple times and still feel uncertain. That experience is common, and it explains why understanding systems gradually often works better than trying to learn everything at once. Small understanding compounds. Over time, knowledge becomes easier. Another important reality is that financial security rarely depends entirely on one system. Many households combine multiple sources: benefits, savings, family support, part-time work, community resources, healthcare programs, housing assistance. This creates overlapping systems. Overlapping systems create interaction. Interaction creates complexity. Complexity increases the value of planning. Ask yourself something important. If one source of income changed unexpectedly, how quickly could you adjust? Many people never think about this question, but resilience matters, not because disaster is guaranteed, because flexibility creates security, and flexibility usually begins with information. People also frequently underestimate how quickly misinformation spreads. One dramatic claim appears, thousands share it, millions see it, very few verify it. This creates cycles of fear that repeat constantly. The challenge is that emotionally powerful information spreads faster than boring information. Unfortunately, boring information is often more useful. Real policy discussions usually involve documents, processes, reviews, timelines, procedures. None of those things feel dramatic, but they matter. Another topic many people worry about involves fraud. Benefit recipients frequently become targets for scams, phone calls, emails, fake messages, false notices, impersonation attempts. Scammers understand something important. People worried about money respond emotionally. That emotional pressure creates opportunities. This is another reason awareness matters. Understanding how systems normally communicate helps identify unusual situations, because preventing mistakes is easier than fixing mistakes later. Another question many people ask is whether future generations will experience different rules. The honest answer is simple. Rules evolve constantly. Some changes are small, some are larger, some create headlines, others happen quietly. This is exactly why staying informed matters. Not because change guarantees problems, because change guarantees adaptation, and adaptation becomes easier when surprises become smaller. Many people spend decades preparing financially for retirement, saving money, paying taxes, building work histories, planning future expenses. But financial preparation alone sometimes is not enough. Administrative preparation matters too. Understanding programs matters too. Knowing where information exists matters too. Because retirement security and benefit security increasingly depend on more than simply having money. They depend on understanding systems. Think about this. Two people may receive identical benefits. One understands deadlines, reporting requirements, eligibility rules, and future planning. The other ignores most of those details. Over time, their experiences may look very different. Not because one received special treatment, because one reduced friction. Reducing friction matters. A lot. Another important thing to remember is that government programs affect real people. Behind every statistic exists someone paying bills, someone buying groceries, someone managing medications, someone supporting family members, someone trying to create stability. This human reality often gets lost during discussions. But it matters. Because systems are ultimately experienced individually, that means preparation also becomes individual. What works for one household may not work for another, which is why asking questions about your own situation matters. General information helps. Personal understanding creates action. So what should people actually do? Start simple. Read important notices. Keep records organized. Understand which programs apply to your situation. Review financial changes before making major decisions. Verify information before reacting. Pay attention to deadlines. Ask questions when something feels unclear. Most importantly, avoid assuming that doing nothing automatically protects you from change. Because systems continue moving whether people pay attention or not. The goal is not constant worry. The goal is awareness. Awareness creates preparation. Preparation creates flexibility. Flexibility creates stability. And stability is what most people ultimately want. The truth is that benefit systems will continue evolving. Rules will continue changing. Conversations will continue happening. Headlines will continue appearing. None of that is likely to stop. What matters is whether people understand enough to respond effectively. Because financial security rarely depends entirely on what happens around you. It also depends on how prepared you are when changes arrive. Learn the systems, understand the interactions, review the rules affecting your situation, ask questions before problems appear. Because waiting until after changes happen often creates fewer options, and when your financial future depends heavily on benefit systems, options matter more than ever. USA Benefit Advisor.